This is an art attack. This is an art attack. This is Art Attack. Hey, listen, do you fancy a quick game of noughts and crosses? Well, forget the boring old pencil and scrap of paper. What you need is the 3D deluxe version. And here it is. Watch this. 3 in a row, and I win. Come and have a look at this. Now, to make 3D noughts and crosses, you need a small-sized newspaper. And we're going to start by making the playing grid. That's the lines that you play on. And you need to take one sheet of your newspaper and close it, and then roll it up from the bottom to the top in a nice, tight, neat roll, like that. So you've got a paper tube. And then a little bit of tape, just to tape that into position so it doesn't all fall apart. And the idea is to make 4 of these paper tubes all together, and then just place them 2 next to each other like that, 2 on the top, to create the playing grid. And when you're happy with the position, tape them down, use lots of tape and make them nice and secure so that you have something that looks like this. Now, to make the noughts and crosses themselves, take another folded sheet of newspaper and again roll it neatly from the bottom to the top, only this time when you've got your paper tube, instead of taping it, just twist it tightly like that so that you get a nice tight twist of newspaper. And now you need to make 10 of these all together. Now, for the crosses, take one of these twisted pieces of newspaper and just measure it up with the middle square on your playing grid and just trim it so that you have a little bit that fits inside that square, and then another piece across like that that also fits inside that square, and then just put the 2 of them together and tape them into a cross. And there it is. You need to make 5 crosses all together. For the noughts, again, take another twisted piece of newspaper and again measure that on the inside square of your playing grid so that it fits. That's about it. And then, again, put a piece of tape round when it's the right size. The reason I'm measuring it against the grid, of course, is so it'll fit inside the grid. And then you can trim off the excess there. Perfect fit. And again, you need to make 5 noughts. So that's 5 noughts and 5 crosses all together. So that's the basic shapes. Now, to make them really strong and solid, you need to papier-mâché them. Let me just bring in my old friend here, PVA glue. The white school glue in the squidgy bottles. Mix it 2 parts glue, 1 part water, and then I'm going to start with the playing grid. It's just a case of spreading the glue onto your pieces, playing grid here, and then wrapping some kitchen roll or tissue paper or even loo roll around the bars of your playing grid like that, and just paste them on like that around the back, pushing it into all those nooks and crannies. And the idea is to cover the whole of your playing grid in 2 layers of PVA glue and tissue paper or kitchen roll, and the same with your noughts and crosses. And when you've done the whole lot in 2 layers, put them to one side to dry overnight, and when they've dried, look at this. They've gone rock hard and they're ready to paint. And paint it using poster paint or acrylic paint, but whatever you do, make sure you paint it in outrageous colours. Look at that, I'm just slopping on this fluorescent pink here onto the playing grid, and do your noughts and crosses in exactly the same way. And see what I've done with mine. When mine was dry, I put on some extra little polka dots. Look at that, that looks really crazy. And you can go really berserk with the noughts and the crosses. And there it is, sort of ready to play, really. And the great thing is, you can do any design you like. What about something like this? Black and white polka dots. There it is. And you can leave it lying around your house because it looks great just as a piece of modern art. And of course, if it's there, it's always there when you fancy a quick game. Try it yourself. 3D noughts and crosses.
Hello, it's me, the head. Hey, they are a brilliant idea. And if you want to make a set, roll up and tape 4 sheets of newspaper. Arrange them to make your playing grid and tape securely. Bend twisted pieces of newspaper into circles to make 5 noughts. For the crosses, cut 2 bits and tape them into an X shape. Mix white school glue with a bit of water and use it to paste strips of tissue around everything. When they're dry, paint all your pieces. And you'll have your very own deliciously delightful deluxe set of 3-dimensional noughts and crosses.
Do you know what I love? I love it when you get to see behind the scenes on film and TV sets, especially spooky ones. In fact, I got to see behind the scene on a spooky film set the other day, and you know, things aren't quite what they seem. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that, look. Oh. What's this? Gone to lunch. Oh. Yeah. This gives me an idea for a big heart attack.
was franktastic. Now, don't you go messing about with any bits of scientific equipment, will you? It can be very dangerous.
Have you got a set of these watercolour paints? But does your water always end up looking like this? And your pictures end up looking like this, a complete splodgy mess. Well, believe it or not, watercolours are one of the hardest art materials to use. Many times I've ended up with a complete mess like this because it's all run out of control. Well, here's some tips on how to get good results from your watercolour paints. First of all, draw a sketch on nice, thick drawing paper. Watercolours work best on thicker paper. And when you do your sketch, just do the outlines and the shapes. You don't need to put in any detail. And when it comes to mixing your paint, just mix it with water in the lid tray of your paint box. And if you haven't got one of those, then you can always use empty yogurt cartons that you've washed out. Now, the technique to watercolour painting is just simply to brush on the paint onto the paper and keep that wash going as quickly as you possibly can. Just keep it going down your paper like this, and try not to go back on yourself. Even if you miss a bit, just keep going and you get a nice smooth wash. And you don't have to colour it in absolutely perfectly. Just control that wash all the way down to the bottom, and then stop. Stop and allow it to dry. And you know, that is the secret to good watercolour paintings. Paint each section, then stop and allow it to dry before you move on to the next bit. That way, the paint won't all run into each other and go out of control. So I'm going to put this to one side, and that's exactly what I did with this picture. I did each section, I allowed it to dry before I moved on to the next section. And look at it, it's crisp, clear, and there are no runs because I controlled the paint. So when your background is dry, then you can add on a layer of shading. And to do this, you just mix your paint slightly thicker and add in touches of black. And then just paint it on to the dried background, and look at that, no runs at all. Just another little bit there, like that. Just to finish off some windows. And here's another good tip. It's pointless doing a watercolour painting with dirty water because you'll get all your paint a dirty grey. So use one lot of water to wash your brush with and another lot of water to paint with. And just make sure your background layers are really dry, and then you can add in some finer detail. And I'm just blotting on some shadow in the bushes here. Not too much detail, just some extra shadow there. And then just real fine detail with a thinner brush. There. And there you have a perfectly clear and crisp picture with no runs. Of course, if you do want your paint to run, to create an effect like reflections in water, then get loads of water onto your brush. And actually, this is where dirty water comes in handy, because you just make your paper really wet with that dirty water. See that? Just a bit more in there. Get a bit of the sky reflection in as well. Make my paper really wet. And then just start to put in some darker reflections. So here we go, let's try those trees. Yes, look at that. The paint's really out of control, running everywhere. Different colour. And there it is. Try it yourself, a watercolour painting. But don't forget, let all the bits dry before you move on to the next bit and keep the paint in control.
Well, I've really learnt something there. I just need to paint each part of my picture, letting each bit dry before I paint the next bit. I'll try that next time. Because it's bound to be better than this. Oh!
Hi, I'm Emma and this is my swan picture. I made this one out of black paper and using squares, triangles and rectangles. This is a technique called tangram. I placed the swan on a pink marble background to make it show up brightly. Hello, my name is Philip and I have done this picture on the computer. I chose navy blue as a background. I then drew some little yellow chips to go on top. I then repeated the pattern across the page.
Hi, I'm Rebecca and I painted a simple pattern. I did black lines out from the middle of the picture and to make it eye-catching I painted lots of squiggles, star shapes and spots.
Yeah, great art attacks. And do you know what? That pattern has given me an idea. Here's a challenge for you. See if you can create a never-ending line pattern using a line that never ends. Try this. Take a piece of paper and just draw a line across the middle of it, and then suddenly change direction, and then suddenly change direction again and go back on yourself. Change direction again, go back on yourself, and then change direction again and go up there. And the idea is to just build up a pattern using a line that never ends. And you can draw short lines like that, or longer lines. You can even draw like square boxes like this, but just keep it going and see if you can keep the line as close to itself without actually touching. In fact, there are rules to this game. You mustn't let the line touch itself. You mustn't get trapped inside your own pattern. Ooh, watch out, there we go. And you mustn't stop. In fact, the only reason to stop is to change colour. And you just pick up again where you left off with that never-ending line. And again, just keep the line as close to itself as you dare to go. Keep changing direction. Go back on yourself. You could even wrap the whole thing around itself like that. And then stop and change colour. And just keep going. See if you can fill in the whole of that piece of paper with a never-ending line. And gradually, you'll build up this crazy never-ending line pattern. Good effect, isn't it? Now, you can do a straight line, never-ending line pattern like this one, or you could try a curved line, never-ending line pattern, but the rules are the same. You just, this time, draw a curved line and then suddenly change direction and go back on yourself. Change direction again, go back on yourself. But just this time, you're building up your pattern out of curved lines, big curves, small curves like that. But the idea is to keep that line as close to itself as possible. In fact, you could even challenge a friend to see who can keep theirs going the longest. But again, you mustn't let the line touch. You mustn't get trapped inside your own pattern, and you mustn't stop, because if you do stop, you've lost. Not to worry, pick up a different colour and just continue your never-ending line pattern. Completely cover the page. And there you have a curved never-ending line pattern. Great fun to do and so simple. And you can do them as big as you like or as small as you like. And you can even use them to decorate things with. There's an exercise book and there's a greetings card. Try it yourself. Never-ending line patterns. See how long you can keep yours going for. And I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!